Hi, everyone. Today, I wanted to talk about what are the best practices for hospital websites today and what should they be in the future. And to talk about that subject, I felt the best person to talk about that was the owner of hospitalwebsites.com, who is Sean Gross. He's a digital strategist who's been in the business for decades. And I've also invited the CTO here at Symmetris, who is in the process of writing an article about what the top 100 websites on the healthcare space have in common. Welcome to both of you. I'll let you both introduce yourselves before we kind of get into the nitty gritty of the conversation. So, Sean, tell me a bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, thanks, Brad. And hey, Matthew. Good to see you guys both. I am thrilled to be here. As Brad mentioned, I'm the founder of hospitalwebsites.com. It's a good URL if you can snag it. And it's a really a curated showcase and review site for what I love best in, digital experiences in healthcare, mostly hospitals and health systems. Recently launched that. It's got blog content plus the review site. I'm also a consultant to hospitals, to health systems, even to health tech companies where I focus on strategy, on demand gen content, UX, and really thinking about how to turn digital channels into growth engines. And I think that will be a theme that we come back to later on in today's conversation. I think I'm excited to be here with you both because I see this as being more than just about website design. It's really about how hospital marketers, in my opinion, can rethink digital as not just a front door, but the full journey as they build relationships with the audiences that are most important to them.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Sean. And Matthew, maybe you want to give a little quick couple seconds about yourself as well.
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Matthew. I'm the CTO here at Symmetris. I'm helping organization design the perfect digital ecosystem, a performant one, marrying technology, content, design, and kind of having that 360 view of how to deliver the best experience for patients.
All right. Thanks, Matthew. And I'm Brad. I'm CEO of Symmetris, a host of this podcast conversation series. And Symmetris, basically, we're a digital agency whose goal is really to help hospitals and health systems to extend the lifespan of their websites that they already have as assets. And I felt that this is a really important and timely conversation to have because oftentimes what you can't really just go straight to a redesign. You have to use what's already there and understand what are the next best low-hanging fruits to prioritize. And having had the opportunity on Matthew's side to explore 100 hospital websites and see what they have in common, and Sean's also experience of having viewed so many websites for health systems and stuff like that, I think the first maybe question we could kind of jump into is, what are the main features or what are things that these hospitals have in common? And then we can maybe get into what are the most important ones and what are the best practices to do on them. But what are things that are essential that a hospital website needs to have or display, or a feature that's required, or if it doesn't, it's like there's something lacking there. Maybe, Sean, you have some insights off the top of the bat.
Yeah, absolutely. Love to share this stuff. As part of my intro, I should also share that early in my career, I was the head of digital at Mass General Hospital here in Boston, and then also across town at Tufts Medical Center. And also I've worked with a variety of different digital healthcare marketing agencies as well. So this has given me,
You've been on both sides.
I guess to tell you guys, I don't really get out much. I'm stuck in like hospital digital life, but I love it. It's like the thing that drives me. It's my passion. Maybe I was meant to be a doctor, I guess, at one point. I don't know, a digital doctor. All right. So to your question, it's given me a unique perspective. And I think whether it's across, large academic medical centers or even small regional system sites, I am seeing shared DNA in really how they operate and structure. I think for the last 10 years, we should all pat ourselves on the back as digital hospital health system marketers for doing great jobs at things like, I have a list. I'm going to read off some of them here. Patient-centric information architecture and menu structures. I know that when I was working at Mass General back early in the day, we weren't so good at that yet. So we had a complicated org chart. And what did we do? We put the complicated org chart as the global menu system.
Yeah.
And we made people jump through hoops to understand how we structured. And I, in the last decade, have noticed so many awesome health systems and hospitals and even regional players create very patient-centric menu structures and patient-centric information architectures. So what do I mean by that? Because that feels super jargony. It means getting away from the fact that, yes, you have centers of excellence, and yes, you have departments and divisions, But now I see beautifully labeled, find care or care A to Z, because that's, of course, like an easy one on how patients navigate. I'm also seeing strong SEO for long tail symptom and condition based searches. So, like, another pat on the back. I feel like hospital and health system SEO experts could get jobs at consumer packaged good companies, at automotive, at travel, at large agencies, global agencies, because the work we do as SEO experts, it's all in the spirit to get available traffic, recently diagnosed audiences who have just been told by their primary care doc what they or a loved one has. What do? We go back to Google, or now we go to generative AI search
Yeah.
solutions, and we're sitting down to understand what those keywords mean, what those diseases and conditions mean, and we're using that to wayfind and navigate into the care programs that hospitals and health systems offer, which is slightly different than a decade ago, which was, I want my hospitals and health systems to tell me what the condition content is. I think there's so many other resources now to get that A to Z library content,
Right.
but people are still
Mhm.
wayfinding by that disease or condition name. So that's, again, just another strong SEO as an example of commonalities. I'm seeing deep linking from search into relevant conditions and treatment pages. So I might have cardiomyopathy, but that does not mean I know you have a hypertrophic cardiomyopathy disease program. That's a mouthful.
Mm.
But again, I'm
Wow.
using that keyword that I know to find care. And maybe on those condition landing pages, I'm seeing the links to programs. I'm seeing links to clinical trials, seeing links to doctor profiles. It's all the content on the site, but using tagging, which of course all the content management systems allow for,
Mhm.
it's just bringing the content all together in a view in real time. That's a little different than if I knew to go knocking on the clinical trials door within research or the A to Z section for services. So bring the content to me, and I'm seeing more and more health systems do that. I'm seeing
Just
faceted
before you
search
get into
tools.
the
Oh,
next
yeah,
point,
yeah, yeah.
sorry, Sean, but I feel that this is a really ground is kind of shifting under us as we speak, right? Because of
Yes.
all the AI summaries and stuff like that. And in the second part of our conversation, we're going to talk about how we should be planning for the future with websites. But I think how to approach content is going to be a really big one that we're going to have to address, because
Mhm.
that is, completely, you know, upending the common knowledge that we've worked with over the 10 last years, I feel.
I've heard from clients. I've worked in agencies, and I've heard from clients who like these condition hub ideas, but they say, "Oh my gosh, to do that right, we're going to have to create so much content that we don't have today." So yes, let's come back to how
Absolutely. Yeah.
hospitals and health systems can deploy generative AI in a way that helps with this content, and it doesn't feel like they're cheating. It doesn't feel like they're rewriting content from someone else. There's ways to make it their own.
Yeah.
Just a few other things, and then I
Yep.
want to get Matthew involved here so
Mhm.
he can round out this list. I'm seeing faceted search tools that mimic
Yep.
best in class search and from e-commerce. If you've ever used the faceted browse on sites like thegap.com or eBay, you're starting to see hospitals and health systems use the same level of sophistication with their internal search. Goes without saying, robust provider profiles with things like ratings and videos and photography and scheduling, because the number one content type in all the experiences that I've ever had with my clients has always been the doctor profile. Appointment scheduling, same day access, these things have become like table stakes almost, and
Mhm.
integrated telehealth capabilities. And lastly, I will just say, like, strong editorial sophistication. You're meeting folks with job titles like executive editorial director or website managing editor. I want to talk about that a little later on, about how to use that content for conversion and not just for general health information, because that person may be a valuable audience member coming to the site. If they just read the content, though, they show up in our analytics as a bounce. And I think there is a way, for the lack of, a better term, to sort of get our hooks into that
Mhm.
person.
Yeah.
And overall, I'll just say that I'm seeing strong alignment between brand, UX, and content in a way that I've never seen before. So it just speaks to the different specialties that digital teams are hiring, those different skill sets. They are truly like little mini digital agencies within their healthcare organization. Matthew, what are you seeing though?
Yeah, so I think hospital and health system websites are doing much better at navigation, like you've mentioned. And you can see the difference between the ones that made their homework in
Mm.
researching their audience, their patient journeys, and the ones that just slap their org chart on the website. So you see a big difference here. I think when you think about the challenges that an hospital website has in the volume of content and in the
Oh, yeah.
number of audiences they need to serve. So not only patients, but career seekers are also doctors who want to refer a patient, etc. So making sure that on that navigation you can segment all of those different user journeys and putting the priority on, let's say, patient acquisition, and making sure that those big beautiful call to actions are catering to that specific user journey. Hospital websites are doing much better than before. A couple of blunders I see around are maybe having too many sometimes call to actions instead of focusing on their kind of primary hook. And yeah, you still find those kind of more retro websites with that complicated information architecture where it's so hard to navigate. This is probably one of the first things to look at if you're thinking about how you want to manage your content on your website. Of course, I really love your take on facilitate search for doctors directory. It's easy to forget that there's going to be a lot of mobile traffic on those pages.
Oh,
So you
yeah.
want to make sure that those filters are working beautifully on mobile as well. But
But
I
even, I mean,
think,
sorry to interrupt,
yeah,
Matthew, but I mean, just mobile experience in general
Yeah.
on hospital
Yeah.
websites, there seems to be like this
absolutely.
chasm between the ones who get it right and it's just like almost an app-like experience, and then
Yes.
these other ones that are like so clunky, nothing works, there's no responsive thought into that design. And I'm like, how do people, like, there's more than 50% for sure visits that are on mobile, but why are people not considering that, or why are they putting that as a second thought? Maybe they're
Yeah.
just pushing a redesign towards the future somewhere, but it boggles my mind how some of these websites are not mobile friendly.
Yes. And when you think about the mobile experience also, you like to let's say you take your phone, you go on your hospital website, and you want to put kind of the most important stuff and kind of in the easily accessible area. And then you can ask yourself the question of, if I'm taking it out for mobile, should I take it out altogether of the website? If it's not
Mm.
important enough
Yeah.
to be on my mobile front page, is it even worth having it on the desktop version? So I think this is super interesting. And I think, to go back to physician filtering, hospital websites are getting also more sophisticated and innovative there, having the opportunity to filter by insurance, right? With deeper integration with their EHR, or allowing to just kind of select on the first page of the filter to select options like telehealth, or the even the hours of the appointment and availabilities of the doctors. All of these little features reduces the friction of getting someone to kind of book and seal the deal and book the appointment with the doctor. So everything that reduces friction in that process of booking the appointment is really crucial, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100% I agree on that. And I think you can really tell the best of breed hospitals, and I mean, or health systems, and it's, I mean, obviously they have more money to invest, they have a bigger team to do so. But when you're consolidating, in the same search, you can see the locations, the physicians, the appointment times. It's kind of integrated, or like as some type of an iframe where you can start that booking process within the website without being redirected to some, my chart separate system that's super clunky and stuff like that. So I feel that the more integrated that experience is into one seamless flow, the better it
Mm-hmm.
is. And this is something we can talk about in the future as well, how to better integrate those things. One thing,
Yeah.
just before we kind of get into maybe stuff that hospitals are getting wrong, one thing that I know that we've talked a lot about, and it's more behind the scenes, is the accessibility of the website. And the accessibility also usually kind of fits into it just is beneficial. Not only is it kind of, you got to legally be accessible as a care website, but also it's beneficial for SEO and now for AEO, or answer engine optimization for LLMs and Google summaries and stuff. So I feel that it's something that's often overlooked and something that's not very visible. But if your website is coded and written and the content is structured in an accessible way, it's just beneficial for all, consumers, but also for findability of the website.
100%. Yeah,
Mhm.
couldn't agree more. And you're right. There's like the front end, sort of the brand perception and the brand need of like, hey, we're a hospital or health system. We have to be doing this. But I agree. There's like so many wonderful rewards that you reap from the back end and from how other integrations perceive your code and rank you accordingly and all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And so go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's important to remember that nobody planned to be not accessible. It kind of
Yeah.
happens during
Mm,
the process. And oftentimes you will see kind of the building phase of a new website. The accessibility is all over the place. We audit it. We end up with a deployment going live. Everything's fine. But 6 months later, this is where everything goes off the boat, right?
mm.
Because maybe building the content, we kind of start skipping adding alt to images, or we start uploading images that don't contrast very well with the text that go over, right? So if there is not a consistent follow-up on accessibility, if you're not doing kind of this housekeeping and this constant education of both technologists but also content editors, you're gonna end up with a unaccessible website and maybe a lawsuit if you're not lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, so but it kind of creeps in, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not voluntary, like I don't want this website to be
exactly.
accessible kind of thing. And so what are you guys seeing as stuff that hospital websites are getting wrong? Like how can they make such a egregious mistake? Or man, this if they just fix that, the conversions would go up like, 20-fold or whatever. What are those kind of pet peeves you have with hospital websites?
Yeah, I will jump in just to say that, hey, you heard me a second ago list off half a dozen awesome things that I see these commonalities across all great sites. I will just throw a sort of strategic wrinkle, a curveball, if you will, into the
Mm,
mix. There is this rub that I see, and it is that sites, and I've faced this when I was at Mass General and also at Tufts Medical Center. We were still building sites for really one type of visitor, and that's the ready to book. So I think
right.
what you're finding at conferences like HMPS and HCIC or SHUSHMED is conversation on the ground of, are we building transaction engines?
Yeah.
Or are we here to, look, if you're not ready to schedule an appointment today, are we still making content experiences for you? Because otherwise, the website quickly becomes just a health content library or a medical encyclopedia. And then, yes, you heard me say earlier, folks bounce, they leave, even though that person was exactly the type of what I would call, high intent, clinical priority audience. And you'd want to nurture that audience over
Mhm,
time. There are other
mhm,
industries outside of healthcare that have gotten really good at nurturing audiences to nudge them to make a purchase. And in our world, it's to keep the brand top of mind so that ever should you need
yes.
us, God forbid, you or a loved one, our brand is top of mind. And we can certainly segue into what hospital health systems may need over the next 5 years. But I would love to get both of your takes on sort of, before we jump into that 5-year view, just in the moment, we talk about
Yeah.
these digital front doors being here for transactions. Are you seeing people starting to raise their hand to
For
say,
sure. I mean,
yeah,
all the
what could I do? What
conversation,
what could I do to offer folks something if they're not ready to book now?
Mhm,
well, with the conversations I'm seeing a lot at conferences, like, that HMPS or HIC or whatever, is people
Yeah.
are focusing, there's kind of multiple forces going on right now. And I think one of them is you got to do more with less. There's less budgets. Then there's the AI stuff. And there's this existential threat to marketing where marketing always feels that they need to prove themselves to the executive suite and show that the work they're doing is bringing value and like what are the KPIs we're measuring. And it's obviously easier to say, look at the KPIs of look how many appointments I book for this service line that speaks directly to like a, CFO or financial executive or whatever, as opposed to saying, hey, I'm creating a brand awareness. I'm accumulating some goodwill. I have a bunch of people that I've signed up to, a recurring newsletter to give them a better insight onto our brand. So I think right now, because it's such a tight and existential type market, that people are not investing, like you're saying, towards that future patient, and they're like laser focused on the current now patient. But I think that's a mistake because in the future, that patient might go elsewhere because you didn't take the time to bring them into the fold slowly. So that's kind of what I'm feeling as it's not voluntary that people want to push those potential patients away. It's just that they want to quote unquote survive as a marketing team, and they have to prove these kind of numbers, and it's an easier thing to measure when you're measuring appointments booked and attended, as opposed to saying, hey, look at all these people I've created awareness with and who have a positive view of our brand in our lower kind of mid funnel.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is about the mid-funnel. Matthew, I don't know if you have thoughts on that too, because I would love to throw, you mentioned the C-suite, and I've had to develop either with clients or on my own at Master Rental and Tufts, dashboards that go beyond just reporting on appointments booked and unique visitors coming to the site. And so I'd be happy to explore some of that. But Matthew, you should share some of your thoughts on this as well.
Yes, absolutely. So I think, so putting myself in the marketer's shoe, I think there is so much content online about marketing tactics for e-commerce websites and for kind of B2C client acquisition. And I think those tactics don't necessarily apply in the healthcare because that long time relationships you want with your patient, because of that brand recognition, because of the type of service where trust is so important.
Oh yeah.
Maybe healthcare marketers should start using a little bit more of the B2B marketing playbook, where you know that your target audience is not ready to buy right now, but you want to be top of mind that they will need your help for something,
That's a
right?
good point. Yeah.
So,
Right.
and here you can think of deploying that type of tactics. I want to see on hospital website a little bit less of generic content and a little bit more of explaining to your community why your primary care is so adapted to your local presence and your local community, or why your kind of pediatric care is much different than your competitors, right? Telling that story that sticks, that is across multiple channels and that build trust over time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I agree with that. I think that's kind of like we can, maybe jump out of other things that are missing on healthcare websites, but I feel that's such a good segue to what the future should be. And I think the future, in a sense, is also about kind of how we closing those gaps on what's missing on, health system websites right now. And the fact that we have to shift, I think, from the idea of having, as you were mentioning, Sean, like this kind of encyclopedia or this kind of the Wikipedia of like every symptom available and stuff like that. I think
Yes.
now what Google is doing is they're kind of answering those questions. And I think it's something like 80% of health questions now are answered in
Yes.
those kind of Google summary things, right?
That's right.
And so when people are coming to your hospital's
Mhm.
website, I think it's going to be either for like, they've done that kind of research and they want to specifically book that appointment, or they checked all the reviews for the doctors in some other system and this is the doctor I absolutely want to kind of have an appointment with. But on the other side of things, I think it has to move much more towards your brand differentiation. How do we provide care? What's different about our institution versus the one across the street? Why you should come to, how we approach your holistic kind of experience. And I think that direction on top of the more kind of lower funnel, because people are going to do research potentially elsewhere. I think those are the two main drivers of how we should be approaching content and even the structure of websites moving forward.
I totally do. And I would love to build on some of the things and the themes that I've heard you both mention, because if I think about how hospital digital marketers need to evolve over the next 5 years, let's just start with like a use case. Someone who's recently diagnosed, they come to our site, but you heard me say earlier, what if they're not ready to schedule? They instead become a bounce. What if instead, I should say, of becoming a bounce, we offered some sort of interesting, unique new content opportunity that we haven't yet created as hospital and health system marketers, a choose your journey experience, if you will. So a few themes to wrap some of these ideas together. This shift can happen. We move from being a static experience, like an encyclopedia or a Wikipedia, to something that's much more personalized, maybe even authenticated. And also, to Matthew's point, brings in experiences that B2B brands have already figured out. I call them progressive profiling experiences, but I'm not referring to the dreaded gated content offer, because I still don't believe that
Download this white paper about our hospital.
Well, look, I don't want to name names, but there are a few brands who put out their like recently diagnosed with this terrible thing. Just download the 5 steps to prepare for your procedure, but we'll just need your email to put into our Salesforce CRM. I'm not going to name names. I think we can do better than that, though. And I think we can still carry out progressive profiling techniques. So first and foremost, we know, and I heard you mention it, Brad, the My Charts exist of the world, the patient portals, and we ask audiences to authenticate themselves with a username and password. But then we have our brand sites that the marketing team spends a year plus building and then years growing and nurturing over time. What if we allowed folks to create a single account that authenticated both experiences? It would allow you to
That would be the holy grail.
the holy grail, right? Because now you can save info and show a little bit and share a little bit of your intent on that public brand site. You can follow topics. You can have a For You page. You can track your favorite doctor's research. You can customize the experience. And that would be a way, compared to in a Boston market or a Chicago market, these, hospitals are everywhere. If your system site offered an authenticated experience, that would actually be a lever you can use as an overall brand experience, saying, look, we're better than our competition because come use our site once and it'll get to know you. Now, of course, there's going to be privacy and personalization issues at hand, and we're going to use first-party data to actually get folks to opt in. So you can say, hey, look, I don't want to use some of these services, but you guys have seen the same research I've seen from Gartner's and from Forrester's, and Marketo puts this stuff out with Adobe, saying that like younger audiences will gladly share a little bit of information about themselves in exchange for a more personalized brand experience.
Yeah. And I think that, I think an important part of that, because, there's a lot of talk about personalization and it's, it's the talk of the town. Everybody wants to, but I think that there's a line on where personalization is creepy or not. And if you're somehow trying to personalize a website before that person has authenticated themselves or given some kind of specific information, for me, that's in the creepy side of things. And if you're saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to authenticate, I have, maybe this condition or these are my preferences, and then I go to the website and it's showing me content that I've volunteered as information that's relevant to me. Then it's personalizing stuff. Then it's saying, hey, we've just opened a new, cancer center, and, that person is interested in finding out about that stuff. I think then it's relevant. But if you're kind of personalizing an experience before giving kind of consent to personalize, I feel that's a difficult line to cross.
It's a slippery slope, especially in our space. And I am 100% aligned with that. Yeah.
I would say that the only thing is you must consider that they are willing to give their information as long as they don't have to repeat themselves 10 times, right? And this is why you mentioned that it's crucial that you don't have to create 10 different accounts. You have one account, maybe the MyChart one, and then you use that credential to authenticate and kind of share information with marketing automations and stuff like that, right? So it's always about friction. You don't want to. So another blunder I've seen a couple of times is you click the book an appointment button and then you have to go 30 steps before starting choosing when it's going to be and what's your provider, right? But you have to create an account and you have to check 10 different disclaimers and you have to do X, Y, and Z, right? So you want to remove that friction.
Yeah, even if you're like, you found the doctor you want to book, right? And then it's like there's a button and then you book now, and then it goes back to the start. It's like I don't understand why you couldn't just add some kind of a variable in the URL to kind of go straight to the page for that specific provider. It just, I don't know. How can it be so clunky?
You mentioned earlier, Sean, the follow that doctor's research. What I like about this example is that you're kind of providing something. You're not just harvesting personal information. You're really kind of providing reassurance that that specific patient that was diagnosed with that condition can make sure that the treatments that are proposed to them are relevant and up to date and not some obscure old thing that we did 30 years ago, right?
Yes. And it allows folks to get either browser alerts and notifications or emails. The world of creative possibilities, I get excited. I take my strategy hat off and put like a creative director hat on and start thinking about like quizzes and assessments that go way beyond just like a health risk assessment tool that's like a very static moment in time snapshot to something much larger. Am I the right fit? How will I decide if, my child is the right fit for this organization? Through a series of questions, little assessment tools can be helpful. Saving or bookmarking care providers to a certain little section. I don't want to say locker, but I'm going to just call it a locker
Mhm.
You are essentially not only providing a personalized experience, but you're starting to tell the site a little bit about your interest in exchange for something that gets pushed back to you that feels more customized.
In
Mhm.
a kind of
Mhm.
self-contained way, I feel that because we've implemented some, chatbot systems where it does allow you to in that within that chat, you're asking questions and it's getting
Mm,
kind of to know you. And does this hospital provide this? And do you also have, as a caregiver at home, how can I? And it can give you some insights there. I was so excited by the concept as you were. I didn't necessarily give it a second thought, but then I was talking with a person in the marketing team at a provider, and then they said, yeah, but we're scared that the emails that we're sending, since they're being sent out from the hospital, and when people are waiting for, let's say, a test result from the hospital, when they get emails, there's an emotional kind of anxiety around receiving an email from the health system because it might be the email that gives me the cancer diagnostic. It could be, some bad news, right? And then it's going to be mixed with these kind of emails of like, oh, it's our, Halloween party for the community that we're, sponsoring or whatever. And so how do you see being able to nurture
yeah.
these prospective patients or patients, because we do want to kind of include this into the ongoing relationship we do have with existing patients.
Mhm.
How do we separate the kind of critical care related, specific to me kind of emails from the more nurturing and brand building type of communications? What's your perspective on that, Sean?
That's a great one, and I don't claim to have the golden ticket on how to answer that one, but I will just say initial thoughts are that we probably, as an industry, got in the business of sending emails like healthy eating month or tips for wellness or we're having an open house. We send these broad one-to-many emails. We now have the technology and the abilities to send more personalized
Mm.
emails about you and your family. And so maybe in the portal is where we have the lab reports, where sometimes it's good information and sometimes it's not so good information. But I think the one-to-one that come from outside the portal, we just as an industry need to shift and reimagine what the design of those communications are in
Mm,
the first place, because I'd like to make them more about your care so that they feel more holistically one to one. Then we're saying come one, come many to the open house because we opened a new wing of our, cancer center or heart center. Um, I'm not so sure those emails are needed. And when I think about nurture programs, connecting via a mobile app, connecting via text messaging and email, they are more personalized based on the care for you. And so maybe they won't be so threatening because now we're just sort of conditioning and making a new habit that like,
hmm
yeah, we're going to get information about our own care needs. And that has to do as innocent as how many steps and sort of wellness information related to me. But it could also mean like educating me on some of the acronyms in my test results that I'm
Right.
going to want to follow up when I get on site or have a phone call with my doctor because there's going to be some not so good information mixed with some of the good information. I don't want to make it only feel like health systems are only sending out bad information.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a tricky kind of, in one sense, what I think is there has to be some way to be very, very clear. Is it in the labeling? Is it in the sender? Is it in the subject line? Or, whenever there's a notification or an email you're sending to a prospective patient or patient, it has to be 100% clear to them that, oh, this is a nurture type communication versus a care or symptom type, related to my recent hospital visit or like a reminder for the appointment I'm going to have tomorrow kind of a thing. Those
That's
have to be crystal clear that they're coming from different sources and that one is a really important thing to look at and the other one, can be flagged as a I'll read it later kind of newsletter thing. Because otherwise, I think there could be confusion there and it could actually push away the client and erode that trust that you're trying to build.
So something I would say is thanks to legislation in the EU and everything, now kind of marketing communication software are very good at handling not only kind of consent and privacy, but also kind of segmentation and separate lists, right? And one of my dream, and we talk about that often, is with the collaboration between the marketing teams and the clinical and care teams right? At some point, there will be some possibilities of putting on pause some of the campaign for some specific people, because this is also personalization, right? Saying this person does not need to receive any kind of nurturing campaign because they are in active care. Maybe they're in a chemotherapy right now with us, and they don't need to be reminded that we have, I don't know, a Halloween party on Tuesday, right? So
That's right.
at some point, there's going to be better ways to integrate those functionalities and being able to have a more agile approach to who receives what when. And I think as we augment the collaboration between marketing and all the operations team, we will be able to kind of nourish that trust of we will not send you annoying email while you're having serious anxiety about receiving that diagnostic.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, I mean, guys, this has been a fantastic conversation. If we had one takeaway for a healthcare marketer about our conversation, what should they be looking at or prioritizing, or next step should they be doing related to their hospital or health system, or even regional kind of organization website? What would be the next thing that they should be doing based on what we just talked about?
Well, I would, hey, listen, first of all, we have been talking for about 30 minutes now, and we haven't spent 90% of the time talking about AI. So congratulations
Right.
first and foremost on that, because I'm not going to say they need to turn all their attention to AI. I'm going to go back and double down on this idea of coming from a tried and true practice from B2B life of progressive profiling. Thinking about the larger pool of audiences that are coming to their website or mobile apps that are not ready to make an appointment today, but may be convinced to do so in the future. I think you have to start small. You have to think about creative ways to collect name, to collect email, to collect interest, even clinical context. Load that into the CRM, because so many CRMs are being used just to nurture relationships with current patients, but they are untapped in their profiles for thinking about prospects. So I would say start with progressive profiling, begin that plan, start small, and think about what that first value exchange really looks like. Save content, email, name, and so on. And that's going to help springboard from there. If you do that work, your nurture engine. And it's going to help audiences, as you heard me say a second ago, sort of unlock their CRM activation beyond just focused on current patients, really thinking about your top service lines and the traffic that's coming to your site. So progressive profiling along with nurture email series, the B2B world has done that. And I think hospital marketers are ready to jump into that world.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I think that use case of people, hasn't been really addressed in the sense where, hey, I'm potentially either looking for a second opinion, or I'm evaluating different healthcare providers and I'm not sure which one I want to go with yet. And there's probably a way we can, hook those people in and ramp up that trust through some kind of mechanism. So 100%. Matthew, do you have any next steps that you would recommend to healthcare marketers based on what we've been talking about?
Yeah, so I love that idea of looking at what you already have and how you can leverage that better. Hospitals and health systems sit on tremendous amount of quality content, of past experience and data about how their clientele interact with their services. Absolutely, you need to make sure that all of your customer journeys are aligned with your digital ecosystem, and kind of make sure you have a map of that, and that you can start using those assets to deliver more personalized experience, to maybe adjust a couple of places on your current ecosystem to make sure you're delivering the best experience for your users.
I like to kind of say it's a little corny, but hospital websites have become strong front doors, and now it's on time to unlock the full house, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have spent so much time and energy, and we've really mastered getting people to the right place. Now I think it's our job to keep them engaged, to tailor their experiences, and help now bringing it back to the C-suite, showing what the long-term value in doing so looks like.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, I think these are really great next steps on my end. I think that, every hospital system is at a different level of maturity. And I know it's kind of it sounds like the default answer, but just kind of sitting down and understanding what's the roadmap, what's working right now with your website, what's not working, and identify what are those next steps, right? Because I can't just say, hey, you got to fix your appointment booking system when it might not be the main priority for X hospital and probably already, fixed that, but this one hasn't. And so just kind of taking that step back and not just going from day to day in reactionary mode or saying, hey, in 5 years or 3 years when we redesign, we'll think about that. There's stuff you can always do with what you've already got on your website. And I think the key to unlocking the website's potential is really to understand right now where are those low hanging fruits and what has the best leverage. And obviously that takes some kind of a step back and some strategy and not just be constantly on the tactic mode. So thanks, guys. This was a great conversation. So many insights. We went in so many directions. Like Sean would probably have to have another conversation to kind of get into the nitty gritty, especially with those AI elements. But thanks to both of you. This was fantastic. And looking forward to an eventual conversation again.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. This has been super awesome. And you're right. I think we just laid the groundwork for another 20 of these. So happy to come back anytime.
Amazing. Thank you.